Greetings, fellow survivors. It seems like a lot of newer players seem to have a difficult time with understanding Moodles. Today, I'm going to go over every single Moodle in the game to help you understand the best way to take care of your little person so that you can survive longer and thrive in combat situations. Let's jump right in. First off, I'll start out with one of the most important Moodles to pay attention to. The Moderate Exertion Moodle decreases melee damage by 50%, decreases your attack speed by 7%, and increases the chance of tripping by 10%. These debuffs increase by a lot the more you avoid taking a break. This Moodle is impacted by physical activities such as running, sprinting, jumping over fences, and swinging your weapons. So don't use heavy weapons if you plan on getting into huge battles. Make sure you use running and sprinting as a strategic advantage when you need to in combat, and avoid just sprinting down the street to get places quicker. Not only does this tucker you out, but this also makes you much easier to spot from a distance. It's best to keep in mind that you can always outwalk a zombie that isn't in the combat stance yet, excluding sprinters of course. Next up is just as important as endurance, it's tiredness. Like moderate exertion, the drowsy Moodle decreases melee damage by 50%, and it also starts to narrow your vision cone and slows your endurance regeneration. The tiredness factor gradually increases throughout the day depending on how much endurance you use, cutting down trees or corpses for example. Fatigue also increases faster the less endurance you have, so it's best to take plenty of breaks in between clearing runs to ensure you make the most of your day. Thirst only really impacts you at the beginning of the game when you don't have a bottle or a container of some sort to hold the water, or when you take the high thirst trait. Thirst increases your body heat generation with each level. Let me know in the comments if you use this to your advantage during the winter. The first level that affects you is thirsty. This decreases your carrying capacity by 1 point. Try and remember to find a water bottle first and keep it filled and in your pocket so that your character will automatically drink from the bottle when they need it. For this next segment, we are covering hunger. This one mainly impacts carry capacity, but let's dive in a bit deeper. This Moodle represents the current need for food. Like thirst, this one has no effects until the second level of the Moodle. Once you are hungry, it decreases your carrying capacity by 1 point, as well as decreasing your heat generation, so don't forget to eat during winter. This level also decreases your healing speed by 35%. This is one of the very few Moodles that also has positive effects. Satiated, well-fed, stuffed, and full to bursting. Remember, scratching your hands up digging for worms to eat in the short term is better than starving to death. This next one is quite important, so keep on watching. It's panic. As you can well imagine, being surrounded by a bunch of people that have the one goal of eating you is quite panic-inducing. You can also get this Moodle with the traits agoraphobic and claustrophobic. Let me know in the comments if you want a dedicated video on all the traits. This Moodle does impact your combat damage quite a bit in the higher levels, so make sure you put beta blockers on your looting list. This one doesn't really impact you much, but it's stress. There are several factors that may impact this, from potentially being infected, lots of zombies surrounding you, lack of smoking with the smoker trait, and if you are covered in blood with the hemophobic trait, night terrors can also impact this. The usual level for those that pick the smoker trait that don't smoke is agitated. This level slowly increases your unhappiness and reduces your melee and ranged damage by 0.1. This Moodle can be reduced by smoking, watching TV, reading, and putting distance between yourself and The Walking Dead. Unhappiness and boredom. These two Moodles are combined as boredom impacts your unhappiness. Your boredom can increase by standing idle too long, being indoors, eating poor quality / stale food, and by reading skill books. The boredom and unhappiness Moodles can be reduced or removed by taking antidepressants, watching TV, listening to music, reading entertaining books, or by becoming panicked by a zombie. As long as you are outdoors doing something, this Moodle will eventually go away. Boredom by itself does nothing, but it does lead to unhappiness. Unhappiness, however, does do a little bit. Feeling a little sad, timed actions such as moving stuff between bags or out of a trunk is 7.4% slower. I really need to work on making my characters happier. This Moodle can be negated partially by having the dexterous trait. I don't want to be a dampener on your Christmas spirit, but if you are actively bleeding, you may have bigger worries than the other Moodles. Minor bleeding. This has no effect other than a health drain. Massive blood loss. You have 4 or more wounds that will soon lead to death unless dealt with immediately. Carrying cap is further decreased by 1 point, which is the least of your worries if you ever see this Moodle. Injured just notifies you about your different health levels. It also reduces your carrying capacity. Hyper and Hypothermia. These traits generally mean you are either wearing too much or too little clothing, and your body temperature is either getting too hot or too cold. If you are too cold, you risk catching the flu, and looting runs with a cold make things 10 times as difficult with all that sneezing and hacking. First off, hypothermia. Unpleasantly hot does nothing. Overheated results in faster thirst and tiredness. It also reduces attack speed by 34%, slightly reduces movement speed as well. Hypothermia, the first level, also does nothing. Cold reduces attack speed by 34%, and moderately decreases your movement speeds. Hypothermic reduces your attack speed by 90% and severely reduces your movement speed. You also slowly lose health until 1% remains. Windchill only tells you about the wind patterns that are in the area. If you are old enough to remember the weatherman, imagine that this is the dude on the news that talks about the temperature with Windchill. Heavy loads can take a lot out of your character. They also increase the dive bomb of your other Moodles as well, such as endurance for instance. Let's dive a bit deeper into this one. Fairly heavy load, 13% increased chance of tripping, 5% less critical chance hit, 8% less likely to climb a tall fence, and 19% slower movement speed. Endurance recovery is also decreased by each of these levels. Pain slows down the walking speed, as well as several other things. Here's a little bit more about this one. Minor pain, 5% increased chance in tripping. Pain, 10% increased chance of tripping. Severe pain, 15% increase of tripping. Agony, 20% increased chance of tripping. Keep in mind, all these levels also impact your attack speed and melee damage. Make sure to keep painkillers on hand if you plan on getting injured. This Moodle shows that you have caught the flu by not staying warm enough or going out into the wintry night while soaking wet. Remember to dry off before going outside into that winter wonderland. The sickness Moodle you can get a couple of different ways. Number 1 is corpse sickness. Number 2 is by being bitten or scratched and coming down with the spiffo flu. If it's corpse sickness, avoid corpses for a while. If it's the spiffo flu, well, I'm very sorry to say, but you are doomed unless you have mods that add in a cure, such as the amputation mod. The wetness Moodle. You can get this Moodle by standing out in the rain or by exercising. Your clothes also impact your wetness level, so after washing your clothes, don't go out into the wintry night. There's also the drunk Moodle. Being drunk increases fatigue depending on the level of drunkenness. It also makes the character generate less heat and delays driving controls. This Moodle will disappear over time, and sleep with rest will speed up the process. There you have it, survivors, all about the Moodles in Project Zomboid. I hope this helped you in understanding the different effects Moodles have over you. Just remember, keep your negative Moodles to a minimum, and you're doing better than most. Let me know in the comments what problems you would like to see a video on. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you stay notified on my future tips and tricks videos for PZ. Stay safe out there, survivors.